without knowing, without realizing, you are raised with a war trauma. I think my life would be much different if my grandfather returned from the war. Maybe I wouldn't even exist. Maybe I wouldn't even be here. The first thing I knew about my grandfather is what my mother told me, that he was a police officer in the Jewish quarters in Amsterdam, and that he helped the resistance to get messages out of the police station of prisoners to the relatives outside the prison. He also managed to get Jews to hiding places. So he was helping the resistance. He was not really a resistance, but he was helping. And he did that for several years. And one day he had to report to headquarters suddenly. And my grandmother told me that, told him not to go because she was suspicious that he was betrayed. So he went and he was captured. He was put in a prison cell for a few weeks. And outside, my mother could wave to him, and my uncles, they could wave to him outside the prison cell. And then suddenly he was gone. He was transferred to Camp Amersfoort. It's a concentration camp in Holland. He stayed there for a month or 1.5 months. And then he wrote a letter to my grandmother. I think I will be free soon because I can hear the bombs falling. And what he heard was the Battle of Arnhem, the bridge too far. That's not very far from where he was. So he thought he would be free very soon. I think it was the 14th of September. Suddenly all the people from Camp Amersfoort were transferred, all the men were transferred. They were put on a train and they were transported to Camp Neuengamme, that is near Hamburg. He stayed there a few days or a week or maybe 2 weeks, and then he was transferred to Engehaven. And Engehaven is also a small concentration camp, and it was a death camp. He was meant to die, and he did. He was an asthmatic patient. We're pretty sure he was starved to death and no medicine, no food. And because it was a very tall man, he had to dig trenches, and he was on the lowest end because he was tall, and that's what killed him. That's the story of my grandfather. So Ellen of the Volkskrant, newspaper in Holland, who is doing the research, contacted me about they found a wallet. Well, a few years before my mother died, she already got a wallet, and that was very strange because the wallet didn't fit. There was a photo inside, which from somebody else. So I said to Ellen, again? But this time it was the good wallet, a right wallet. A few months later, after the wallet, she contacted me again. We found a letter. And that was very emotional. There was a typed letter from my grandmother to my grandfather. And she described my uncles, my two uncles, that they were in high school and they were doing well. And that my mother, he was very creative and she wanted to paint, and some other very personal things were inside that letter. And that really got to me. And that's when I said to Ellen, I want to make a documentary out of it. For me, it's important to tell the story of the trauma, and not the trauma of my parents, because both were traumatized by the war, but the traumatized they bring over to the children. Without knowing, without realizing, you are raised with a war trauma. I think my life would be much different if my grandfather returned from the war. Maybe I wouldn't even exist. Maybe I wouldn't even be here.
We never saw Grandpa's eyes. Never heard his voice. We never grasped his hand.